Thank you all for joining. This is our third kickoff session for the Women at GitLab Mentorship Program here at GitLab, and I'm really excited to have this last session and to chat with you all on this panel. And so we're going to chat with Taylor today and with David about their experience with mentorship, both as mentees, mentors, and like a little mix of both. So personally, it's been really cool to see how this program has grown over time. The program started in 2020, and I wasn't part of that first iteration. And it had about 30 participants, grew to about 60 last year, and now we're at a little bit over 100 participants. So I think that it's really great to see the interest and the participation in mentorship at GitLab. And I'm excited to be paired with my own mentor during this program, this iteration, and excited to learn from her and to learn from all of you. So for this kickoff and for the other two sessions that we had last week, we are going to have a panel to share their answers to a few questions, like I said, about their experience with mentorship. So I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then I'll verbalize a few questions. And then Taylor and David, you can jump in with your responses however you'd like. And if you aren't prepared or don't have something to add, it's totally fine to just pass on the question. So I think I'll pass it over to Taylor first to introduce yourself. Do you mind sharing your name and your role at GitLab and then where you're located?
Yeah, well, it's nice to meet everyone on the call. I'm assuming we're not going to go through full introductions, but we probably can. So I'm Taylor Medlin. I'm one of the commercial SAs here. I've been at GitLab for about 2.5 years, a little over. And prior to GitLab, I was working in digital asset management. So it was definitely very different from DevOps. And I was also working in more of like a post-sales project management, project delivery kind of role. So it's an interesting perspective. I've done the Women at GitLab or Women in Sales mentorship 3 times now. So since the start of the program till now. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I'm really happy to be here and answer any questions y'all have.
Yeah, that's sweet. Thanks, Taylor. You've been doing it longer than I have, which is awesome. So thanks for being on the panel. David, could you introduce yourself too?
Yes, I prepared this well in advance, Samantha. David Stockman, I lead the customer success team, and I am super passionate about this and creating an inclusive environment. I've got a personal connection to just diversity inclusion. Different from a gender related. My dad was in a basically camp during World War II, so it's really important to me to create an inclusive environment. So I always look for opportunities to do that. And I empathize with the situation of women in just any profession, but certainly in tech. And I think we all have to do our part to make sure that we're helping provide those opportunities given given history of culture and other things. And this is my 3rd time. Coincidentally, I actually had a session with my first mentee from the very first session yesterday. So we caught up. It was fantastic. It had been quite some time since we caught up. I am really looking forward to it. I'm doing it again this year. And I personally get a lot of value. I've learned so much from it. And it's funny, as you're coaching, oftentimes you look back and go, I should probably heed my own advice. So there's a lot of self-reflection and a lot of learning, and I think it helps build a lot of empathy for me and understanding how it can be better as a leader to build an inclusive environment. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, cool. That's great, David. Thanks for sharing that. And it's really cool to hear that you're still meeting with your previous mentees. Sophie, who was on one of our panels last week, was talking about how she still meets with her mentor from the first iteration of the program on a monthly basis. So I think it's really great that this program is helping to build some really lasting relationships with people across the company. So cool to hear that.
Yeah, I would look at it, just general in terms of mentorship, but also just building a network. And in the call up, she my mentee, she's Sal Mia, had some issues with channel, and coincidentally had a meeting with Michelle, our VP of channel, and I brought those forward to her. So beyond mentorship, just look at this as building a network within GitLab. And I talked to a lot of my leaders around driving the network effect of driving influence across the org. And everybody can do that. And I really recommend doing that as part of just career building. in any fashion. So
yeah, that's great. Cool. Thanks so much. Okay, so this first question that I'm going to pose for our panelists is, what was your biggest accomplishment or takeaway that you have gained from a mentorship? Taylor, you want to kick us off?
I laugh a little bit because two of the people that were part of my mentorship and what I gained are both on this call. So I ended up getting promoted for my first mentorship, which both David and Jonathan had to read through my wonderful promotion document and give me advice through that entire process. That was pretty big for me, but I think the bigger part of it was learning how to advocate for myself a bit more, especially like here at GitLab. The process is different than other companies. It's not like you've been in a role. This is my cat Luna, by the way. She has not been promoted. She's really bad at sales. But you really have to prove what you've done, and you have to show like the results that you've achieved. And that was good for me to learn here. So that was the biggest part for me, I think, through my mentorship processes, is just like, let's learn how to actually quantify the really good things that we've done and put it into words that we can reference and use. Like, we actually did these things. It's awesome. So that was big for me.
That's great. Thanks, Taylor.
I'm gonna answer the next one, Samantha.
Sure.
All right. I'm going to repeat what I stated earlier, in that I think the process wasn't new learning, but I always learned something every time. I'll tell you about in a second, buddy. Jiu-jitsu belt. I'm the jiu-jitsu belt tire. But I do think it's a really valuable for the mentee, and as a mentor multiple times, I get an immense value from it. And just if I take it selfishly, I do think, as you're talking through this, your recommendations out loud almost all the time, I can apply those same things and question for myself. So in many ways, I'm, just saying the words out loud. I probably need to do a little better job myself. So, it's a really great learning process.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like that's something that it's really important to communicate, like on my part. And I think we're like learning how to do that better over time, because sometimes I think mentorship, it's assumed that like the benefits are for the mentee and the mentor is just there to like support the mentee, but there's really actually so much learning that both mentor and mentee can do, that it's a great learning opportunity for both people in the mentorship, not just like what can I help my mentee achieve. Before I ask the next question, I meant to say at the beginning, if anyone on the call has questions for the panelists that you think of, feel free to add them to the agenda. I'm going to drop the agenda link in the chat one more time in case you don't have it. And so feel free to add those and we'll get to them after we get through these questions. So this next question is really actually kind of goes along with what I was just saying about how mentorship is an opportunity for both people in the relationship. And so I'm wondering, what is something that's something unexpected that you've learned from your mentor or from your mentee? Either one of you can jump in.
Oh, it's for us. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, Samantha, you mind if I go off script a little bit?
Sure, go for
Since
it.
I wasn't prepared for it anyway, so I can be ignorant here. For the women on the call, do you have questions around how to take advantage of this? What's the best way to prepare? I want to make sure it's useful for you all, that we're helping support you as you entered this process. Are there any questions you all have? Otherwise, I'll go back on script. Susan, I see you smiling. You're going to hit that unmute button. I see it. Almost there. There we go. There we go.
He's getting closer.
All right.
No, I don't actually have a question, but I'm just really happy I was invited to this mentorship program, because this is my first time ever since I started working. This is my first mentorship. And yeah, and I just believe that whoever you meet in life, whenever who is she is or he is, you've got to learn to that person, whether he is for example just a shoe shiner man. You will still learn from him or whatsoever, because everyone has a talent, everyone has his knowledge, and everyone, you can learn from everyone with anything. So I'm just happy to be part of this mentorship. Yeah,
Awesome, awesome.
and I'm really excited.
Well, I applaud that you decided to sign up for it. It's a great first step. I'll actually jump ahead. I'll get back on script, Samantha. But one of the things I would advise is, it's just your first time, be really intentional about what you want to get out of this. Be really intentional what you want to do. Like, what is your career? And sometimes you don't know. Like, so it could be a couple of things you're thinking about. And I think a lot of mentorships have kind of centered on looking at different options and in the sort. But it's really helpful, as gone through the process a number of times. It's really helpful because generally what I try to do, I feel like my role is to somewhat challenge and like find the reason why you haven't explored something, and maybe kind of poke and try to challenge the mentee a little bit. I'll get you one second. And I'm always also really try to be really careful about that, because I want to make sure that my mentees, guys, spend a number of both of them like, hey, I want to make sure I'm not pressuring you into this, but I'm just using this as a process to explore and really uncover deeper like things that you want to do, don't like to do, or maybe you're nervous to learn, or like, so be thoughtful around how you want to have the conversation, how you like to engage in these, whether you like to be challenged or you don't. I'd recommend put some thought into, how you like to be communicated with, how you like to explore ideas, and really important, what do you want to get out of it? Because that'll help your mentee kind of focus their energy on the thing that's going to be most beneficial to you in terms of what your intentions are for the relationship.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Okay. Well, thank you for like, somebody kind of nudged you to come up with a question statement. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you too.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this is great. And I think that, David, your like reminder to really have like either like a theme or a goal or something that you want to get out of mentorship is really like what makes the time most worthwhile, both for a mentor and mentee. Taylor, did you have anything you wanted to share for this question about something unexpected you learned from your mentor?
It's a hard question because I don't think that I really expected anything. It's just been like, I don't know, let's see what happens here. I think that the most unexpected parts for me was having more exposure to other people within the organization that maybe I wouldn't have had the ability to build relationships with otherwise, and learning a little more about them through my mentor. That was something that I didn't really anticipate. So that was kind of fun and new. It was a little scary too, just meeting new people, as it is always, unless you are a very big social butterfly, which I'm not. So that was big for me, and also a very good learning experience as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so this last question, and looks like Taylor, you can maybe answer this one first. I see you already have some notes in there. Is can you share something that has made your past mentorships successful?
Yeah, so I feel like the mentorship calls, whether you're a mentee or a mentor, it should be a safe space. If you choose to record them, sorry, there's still a cat over here. She's really excited about the day. It should be a safe space. You can share what's actually on the top of your mind and the goals that you have. You should be able to be comfortable sharing those with your mentor and not like worry if, like, let's say you wanted to move to a different part of the organization and that's something you shared with your mentor. Maybe it's not something you want to share with your actual manager, you're not ready for that yet, but your mentor should be that person you should be able to have that conversation with and kind of game plan, see if it is something you really want to do. My mentor now, I have Rashmi, who she's great, and she's an SA leader. She's a woman, and I really look up to her, which is fantastic. I feel very comfortable sharing with her. I'm very comfortable sharing with my manager as well, but I feel like our conversations, I can be very candid with her and my career goals and not have to worry about potentially putting myself in a weird position on my team or making it seem like, oh, I don't want to be here. It's just like, these are the goals that I have. And she is a safe space for me to share that. So
That's so
transparency
great.
is key there.
Yeah, Sid said the same thing. I'm not sure if you all were on his AMA last week. I think it was last week. And Nikki, who's a mentee in this program, asked him for like advice getting ready for the program. And he said, like, be as open with your mentor as you can, because that's what's going to get you to a place where you can start working with your mentor on real issues that you're having. And I think maybe that's easier said than done, because it's hard to like build trust quickly with a mentor. But I think that if you go into it with like good intentions and you are willing to build trust quickly, I think that's when you can get the most out of the mentorship.
And kind of to the statement around know what you want to get out of it. If there's something that you want to make sure isn't shared, just tell your mentor. What I'm expecting is you're not going to share it. For example, when I work my mentee, I will ask, hey, I would like to share some of this with your manager and talk about your manager and get his or her perspective. Are you okay with that? And I think it's really important to have that kind of contract around what you share and what you don't share. Because I think sometimes it's important as a mentor to get other perspectives that maybe those people won't be as open, that you can bring back and help you shape your conversation. But I look at it as I always ask first and say, hey, would love to talk to these people. Are you okay with that? And this is what I would talk with them about. So if on the flip side, as a mentee, if there's areas that you want to make sure, hey, this is kind of sensitive, I don't want these people to know, I would just be super intentional and be directed and say, just to make sure, I don't prefer not this be shared with anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And then like it almost, that just kind of sets you up for success, to be assuming that your mentor is going to respect what you're asking for, which I think we can all like assume that that's what they're going to do. You just right off the bat, you set up a space where the expectations are the same for both mentor and mentee. And when expectations are set, I think everyone feels like they can be more authentic. So that's great. Thanks so much, both panelists, for answering those questions. We have a few more minutes and Jonathan has a question in the doc, so I'm going to pass it over to him to ask.
Sure. I was just wondering if you can share a challenge that you've encountered, whether it's as a mentor or a mentee, during this program or any mentorship relationship.
I can't think of a specific like challenge / problem. But one thing I do try to do is kind of challenge my mentee to think bigger or go deeper into why. Like I had a mentee that she said she didn't want to be a manager, but everything she described was like the characteristics of an awesome manager. And so I kept saying, well, let's explore this. Like, why not? Because everything you tell about what you like, what drives you, you like to help people, you like to mentor people, like these are all manager things. So why? So I kind of pushed on it to understand a little more. And it wasn't necessarily a challenge, but I was really thoughtful. I tried to make sure I communicate. I'm not forcing you to saying that you're wrong and doing that. I'm just trying to understand and learn from the dialogue. So, I mean, it was me just more being like thinking to myself, I want to make sure she knows I'm not pushing her into something she doesn't want to do. It's more of just an exploratory conversation.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I've also in previous like mentor-mentee relationships, like either through the program or outside of the program entirely, it's just like you don't have to click with everybody, and maybe you get a mentor or a mentee that's like you just don't work well together. And I've had a couple of those situations, and it's okay because we have different working styles. We still respect each other as peers. But I've experienced that, and it's kind of awkward from like the mentorship perspective where it's like, well, we're supposed to be working together, or like, we really want to make this relationship work, but like, we work differently, and we don't see things necessarily the same way or potentially have the same perspectives. So it's hard to benefit from that sort of mentor-mentee relationship. I would say that's the most difficult experience that I've had.
Yeah.
It's easy to just call it off too and be like, we're not working well together. Let's just be friends.
Yeah. I think it's funny, Taylor, as you're describing that it helped trigger something that, again, I wouldn't necessarily put as a problem or a challenge, but just something I actually often go into them with a little bit of anxiety myself. So if it feels kind of strange, like to me, I have anxiety, like I have an expectation this person's expecting, I need to help them in a material way. And sometimes I'm like, I get asked questions and I don't know if I have a great answer. And so I try to, but I get a lot of anxiety around it. Like I feel I have an expectation I need to help, every minute this person's spending time out of their day to meet multiple times, and I need to help them in a very material way. And sometimes I get questions, I'm like, I'm not sure that was helpful. I hope it is, but just understand both parties are trying to do their best to get the most out of it.
Yeah. I think that's a great reminder. And that, like, I think, Taylor, you have a great point that the nature of this kind of program, there's a chance that you won't get paired with someone that you work great with, and that's totally fine. And if you want to end the mentorship early, then you end the mentorship early. That's always an option. But also remembering that, like, maybe at first it might feel like we're not working great together, but it could just be that both of us have some anxiety about what our role is in the mentorship. And that with time and conversation, that might go away, and you might discover, like, oh, wow, I'm really glad I put the time in, because this ends up to be a really great mentorship.
Definitely. And even if, like, you decide that you and your mentor don't click, maybe you don't want to continue that relationship later, you've still learned something. Whether it's through the mentorship or it's something that you've learned about yourself and the way that you like to work, it's still valuable. It's still worth the time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're just about a minute over time, so I'm going to wrap things up. But I just wanted to say that I'm really appreciative for all of you for being here, for Taylor for being on our panel Last Minute Ask yesterday, and David, a Last Minute Ask about 25 minutes ago. I hope I learned a lot from this conversation, and I kind of like when we end up having like small groups. It feels like more comfortable for me, so I've really enjoyed this time. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is for you. If you need any support throughout the mentorship, you can reach out in the Women at GitLab Mentorship Slack channel and tag me there, or feel free to send me a direct message if you don't want to post in that channel. And I will talk to you all soon.
Yeah, I hope you have a great discussion with your mentors.
Bye, all.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you.